My mother-in-law taught me to crochet back in 1976, and I quickly migrated to making Afghans as they were the most fun of projects to do. I've made a lot of them for family and friends over the years, and unfortunately I don't have pictures of all of them, but here are a few that I do have. This first Afghan is a Christmas Afghan that I made for Ron and myself. I finished it in 2003 after carrying the pattern around for about 20 years. I decided I was never going to make it again because it was way too much work for the amount of time you actually get to display a Christmas Afghan. So it comes out every year, but nobody else is getting one until I pass on and bequeath this one to somebody else. This next Afghan I made for my big sister, Lorraine, by request. I've actually made this Afghan for, I think, 3 times now. Each time it was either because of a color change or it just wore out. This particular one, I felt like I was making a huge baby Afghan, but the pastel colors she chose went marvelously with the color scheme in her bedroom when it was all done. I had a lot of fun making this one. It's an adaptation of a cross-stitch pattern for a star that I ran across, and I adapted it to the Afghan stitch. It's my first project where I actually designed the Afghan from start to finish, and I wish I had made more stars on the side panels, but I'm pleased with the way this first one came out. This one ended up going to my sister-in-law, Carmen. Well, now I'm gung-ho about adapting cross-stitch patterns to the Afghan stitch. Our house has a distinct southwestern theme, and I ran across this cross-stitch pattern and thought, well, maybe I can make an Afghan out of it. It came out pretty good. It's not quite to scale the way it was designed in the cross stitch, but overall I think it looks pretty good for the effort. And this one we display during the winter time on our sofa in the living room. This Afghan is a combination of both the Afghan stitch and the popcorn stitch. The Afghan stitch is one pattern, and I varied the colors between green and burgundy, and the popcorn stitch is a variety of shapes. Most of these shapes I found in various cross-stitch patterns, the diamonds, the squares, and it just added some nice variety. This is a series of 5 panels that were sewn together when the project was complete. It was given to my mother for her birthday several years ago when she was still living at home. Okay, I did vow that I wasn't going to make another Christmas Afghan because they are too much work for the amount of time you could display them. Well, I lied. I found this border print in a cross stitch and it just intrigued me, and I kept looking at it and finally decided to give it a shot. When I was all done, in fact, you'll notice that the stars are very similar to the previous Afghan I made. Unfortunately, my camera didn't take very good pictures, though that's actually a hunter green and a burgundy color the stars are. And the same thing with the holly pattern going around the border pattern. I gave this one to my sister-in-law, Janine. Okay, now I'm getting frisky. This particular pattern was a crochet pattern that I ran across, but it was designed to be done in single crochet. Once again, I decided to adapt it to the Afghan stitch. You'll notice as you look at it, it looks like it was knitted, but it was in fact crocheted using a variation of the Afghan stitch. It was time consuming to do because of the constant color changes, and throughout the entire process I had, oh my gosh, I don't know how many crochet bobbins hanging off the Afghan, which were filled with yarn, and my cats just had great fun while I was working on this project. This one's in our master bedroom closet, and I pull it out when I'm cold because it's really just a lap size Afghan. Well, this should look familiar since it's the same pattern I used on the previous Afghan. The difference here is that I returned to the classic Afghan stitch. The squares were more square using the classic stitch versus the knit stitch. The colors chosen here were chosen for my brother-in-law Paul to match his current bedroom decor at the time. You'll notice that this Afghan is a little smaller than usual, and the reason for that is I designed it to be used as a lap blanket for Ron's wheelchair. Unfortunately, when it was all done with the weight of the yarn, he gets a little too warm when he uses it, so it spends the majority of its time on the couch in his office. It's got stars with a red, white, and blue theme. I found this particular pattern in an old Afghan book that I have on hand, and it was designed to be knitted. Unfortunately, I don't knit, so once again I adapted it to the Afghan stitch and used the knit variation of that particular stitch. It came out nice. I wish I had done more roses on the side, although they were very time consuming. The downside to this particular Afghan is it's very, very thick, so it's a wintertime use only Afghan. I originally gave it to my mom for Christmas, and it's now back in our house and resides in our guest bedroom. Well, we're finally to my last Afghan. This particular Afghan is my own pattern, a basic diamond pattern. I make copious use of variegated yarn using the classic Afghan stitch. This was given away as a Christmas present a couple of years ago.